My name's Daryl Thomas, and trust me, I've waded through my fair share of questionable gigs. I've patrolled a half-abandoned amusement park, where the rusty carousel horses seem to shift positions between my rounds. I've spent nights sleeping upright in a warehouse office with nothing but a 9mm and the scuttle of rats for company. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for the night shift security job at Brockford Coal Mine. The first night I read that rule book, my hands trembling under the single bulb of my trailer, I told myself it was all just local superstition, a bunch of ghost stories dreamed up by bored miners to keep me alert during those endless midnight hours. I was dead wrong. Let me start with a confession that still burns in my gut. I used to be a bodyguard, one of the best, if you believe the rumors swirling through high-end security circles in Atlanta. I had what people in the business called tactical instincts. If some shady character even looked at my client the wrong way, a twitch of the hand toward a concealed pocket, a glance that lingered too long, I'd feel danger prickling at the back of my neck like ice-cold needles. That skill got me contracts with tech billionaires and visiting diplomats who didn't trust the local police. There's a photo that used to circulate around security forums and social media, me standing behind a pop singer on stage during a concert in Miami. In the picture, I'm scanning the crowd with the laser focus of a hawk who hasn't eaten in weeks, while everyone else is caught up in the music. I was that guy. Was. Now. Let's just say I lost my nerve in the worst possible scenario. I froze when an old friend of my client, a guy who'd passed every background check, who'd been invited to intimate family gatherings, disguised himself as an ally and lunged with a 6-inch blade. That single second of hesitation cost the client a knife wound that missed his liver by half an inch, and cost me a reputation built over 8 years. But that's ancient history, right? You might wonder, Daryl, why the hell would anyone take a job at some dusty old coal mine buried in the Appalachian foothills? Truth is, I couldn't sleep more than 2 hours at a stretch in Atlanta anymore. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd see that knife flashing. That moment I froze, my client's blood pooling on the marble floor. The nightmares got so bad I started hearing phantom ringtones, thinking it was the client calling for help that never came. 4 therapists later, I was running out of options faster than my savings account was draining. The ad for Brockford caught my eye specifically because it mentioned isolated location, like it was a selling point. $4,000 a week to patrol somewhere so remote that my failures couldn't follow me, where no sudden movements would trigger my PTSD, where I could rebuild myself in darkness and silence. Sign me the hell up. The free accommodations turned out to be a tetanus risk with running water every other day, but I didn't care. I needed emptiness, solitude, a place where the only thing I'd have to protect was myself. At least that's what I thought. A pathetic delusion that seems almost laughable now. You can run from your demons all you want, but some places have demons of their own, just waiting for broken people like me to stumble in. Had I known what lurked in those tunnels, I'd have turned tail faster than a cat meeting a pit bull. Instead, I loaded my worldly possessions, a duffel of clothes, some protein bars, and my old security manuals, into a battered sedan with 170,000 miles on it, and followed cryptic directions into the remote hills where Brockford Mine was nestled. The roads twisted like coiled serpents, leading me past farmland whose best days were decades behind, abandoned barns collapsing in on themselves like dying men. The sky was a bruised purple when I finally reached the rusted gates. The sign missing 2 letters should have read Brockford Coal. Real welcoming. I got there at dusk on a Tuesday in late October. The gate stood wide open, propped with a crumbling cinder block. The lone security lamp near the admin building flickered like a dying heartbeat, casting everything in sickly yellow. Against the darkening sky, the mine structures looked alive, watching me. As I stepped out of my car, the stink hit me, a rotten egg reek that crawled down my throat and nested in my lungs. I coughed, tasting copper. $4,000 a week, I muttered to myself. Focus on the money. A figure emerged from the shadows, moving with the silent precision of a predator. This had to be Andy. His skin hung on his bones like paper on a frame, eyes so deeply sunken they seemed to swallow what little light reached them. He studied me for 10 uncomfortable seconds before speaking. "You, Thomas?" His voice scraped out like he was gargling gravel. "Daryl Thomas, yeah. I'm here for—" "I know. Come inside." He cut me off, already turning away. No handshake, no welcome aboard, nothing. Only that dead-eyed stare like I was specimen number 1,000 to show up at his doorstep. I followed him into the admin building where bright lights flickered overhead. On a desk sat a binder labeled Rules and Logs in faded letters. "Read." Andy tapped the binder with a yellowed fingernail. "Follow every point. If you have questions, keep them to yourself. This place doesn't tolerate curiosity." He slipped back into the shadows, leaving me alone. I flipped open the binder, expecting standard operating procedures. Instead, I found something straight out of a Victorian ghost story. 1. Never stand still by the shrieking lift shaft. Keep walking, keep breathing, and do not look down, for the drop hungers for a moment's lapse. It has swallowed men whole before they even understood they'd fallen. 2. Ignore whistling, especially if it sounds human. Resist the lure, and do not investigate, even if it calls your name, for voices below will mimic what they hunger to replace. 3. Do not relight the old lanterns. If they go out, let them remain dark. What returns once lit again is not always a simple flame. 4. Don't make promises underground. The earth itself listens, captures your vow, and seals it in stone. If you fail your word, you may find the walls themselves demanding payment. 5. Keep your voice low. Sound travels strangely here. Echoes sometimes come back changed, and the mind is eager to learn new shapes for its call. 6. Respect the old foreman's office. If you see the door open, walk away. If you see someone inside, do not speak to them, for the occupant does not appreciate intrusions into its domain. 7. Log every footstep. If you skip or lie, your path will reverse on your next shift, leading you deeper than you ever intended to go. I almost laughed out loud. Who wrote this shit? Some coal dust-addled caretaker from the 1920s? Because it sure wasn't standard protocol from any security manual I'd ever read. Still, that little voice in my head, the one that kept replaying my biggest failure in vivid detail, whispered, "Remember that day you froze, Daryl. You thought you knew what danger looked like. Don't dismiss these warnings." I tucked the manual under my arm, the paper feeling unnaturally cold against my skin. Andy materialized from the shadows so suddenly I flinched. He pressed a ring of keys into my palm, the metal ice cold despite the muggy air, and told me my living quarters was a trailer near the main slope entrance. Then he vanished, leaving me standing there like an idiot. Hell of a first impression, I thought. But the pay's good, right, Daryl? I navigated the darkened corridors, fumbling for my phone to check messages. Maybe an old buddy who still bothered with me. No signal. Perfect. Isolation complete. My footsteps bounced off the walls as I reached the trailer, a battered single-wide with peeling vinyl siding the color of an old smoker's teeth. I pushed open the door and stepped inside, my boot catching on the warped metal threshold. A single flickering bulb revealed what would be my home for the foreseeable future. A sagging cot with a mattress thin as cardboard, a desk scarred with crude carvings and cigarette burns, and a kitchenette where roaches scurried into the shadows as I entered. My weight made the cot creak like it might collapse when I sat. I took a deep breath, preparing mentally for the coming hours. Ironically, if an urban billionaire needed protection, I'd have been alert, ready, senses dialed to 11. But a dark, lonely mine with rules straight out of a horror novel? That was uncharted territory, and ironically more terrifying than any armed threat I'd faced before. Suddenly, a sharp knock on the trailer door made me spring up, my hand reaching for a weapon I no longer carried. I swung the door open, half expecting Andy's skeletal face. Instead, I found a man with round cheeks, curly black hair spilling from under an Atlanta Braves cap, and a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Hey man," he said. "You the new security hire? The last guy left in a big hurry. Didn't even take his coffee mug. It's still in the break room growing mold the size of quarters. Name's Manny, by the way. I do general upkeep around here." He stuck out his hand, dirt packed so deeply in the creases it looked tattooed there. I shook it, pathetically grateful for any human contact that didn't make my skin crawl. "Daryl," I replied, noticing something flicker in his eyes when I said my name. "So, this place always so cheerful? Or did I come on a bad night?" That got a laugh out of him, though it sounded like it hurt coming up. "You have no idea, buddy. The mine's special. Hope you looked at the binder. The rules can save your skin. At least, that's what Andy says." I studied Manny's face. Unlike Andy's corpse-like appearance, Manny looked alive, exhausted, with bags under his eyes heavy enough to need their own zip code, but human. Beneath his easy smile, though, I caught the same wariness my high-profile clients showed when they believed someone was tracking them. That constant tension around the mouth, eyes that never settled in one place too long. So I'm not the only one creeped out by this place, I thought. Manny jerked his head toward the open door, the tendons in his neck tight as guitar strings. "I gotta check the tracks, see if that storm last week caused any new leaks. Want a mini tour? Might be good to know the layout before you're wandering around alone in the dark." Part of me wanted to decline, but I figured Manny was my best shot at getting intel that Andy clearly wouldn't provide. I grabbed my flashlight, a heavy mag light that could crack a skull if needed, and followed him into the night, the rule binder tucked under my arm like a talisman. As we walked the dirt path circling the main slope, Manny fidgeted with his vest pockets, checking a walkie-talkie that looked like a prop from a 90s action movie. The mine lay eerily quiet, just a breeze whistling through rusted equipment with a sound almost like humming. "So, what exactly happens here?" I asked, keeping my voice low without thinking. "Place looks deserted, no workers, no activity, just you and Andy?" He slowed his pace, chewing his lower lip. "Yeah, mostly. We do official inspections, checking for structural issues, making sure half the county doesn't get buried if something collapses. Management claims they might restart operations someday." He snorted. "But honestly, I think they just keep people here so the insurance doesn't go through the roof." The way his voice tightened told me there was more, much more, than this sanitized corporate version. My eyes caught a looming structure in the darkness, iron girders climbing into the night sky like the bones of some ancient beast, half collapsed from neglect. I recognized it from the binder. "That's the shaft we're not supposed to stand still by, right?" I nodded toward it. The shrieking lift shaft? Manny's throat bobbed as he swallowed. "Andy calls it the heart of the mine. When wind passes through those girders, it sounds like a woman being murdered sometimes. They say it's haunted. I've heard it moan at weird hours, but I don't stick around to find out if it's wind or something else." We walked in silence for a minute, our footsteps crunching on gravel that seemed to amplify every step. Manny's earlier friendliness had evaporated like morning dew in August heat. So had my illusions about this being a simple security gig. If Manny, who presumably spent every week in these tunnels, avoided certain areas, that meant there was danger beyond normal industrial hazards. My gut twisted with a mixture of dread and morbid curiosity. "Look," Manny said suddenly, turning to face me, half his features swallowed by darkness. "You read the rules, right? I know they sound nuts, but trust me, don't break them. Not a single one." He paused, eyes darting to the binder under my arm. "And watch out for the whistling. A few weeks back we had a guard who answered it, thinking it was just echoes. Andy found him hours later in a side tunnel, babbling about faces in the rock. Guy left that same night, didn't even wait for his paycheck. That's how badly he wanted out." A chill crawled up my spine despite the warm night. Manny shook his head, forcing a smile that looked painful. "Anyway, I'll keep an eye on you. Strength in numbers, yeah?" I thanked him, genuinely grateful despite the growing unease in my gut. Manny might be the only ally I had in this forgotten place. If only I'd known the horrors waiting ahead. But something about his story nagged at me. Why would anyone stay in a place that terrified them this much? The money was good, but was it really worth living in constant fear? "Manny," I asked, "why do you stay here? Seems like the kind of place most people would run from." His smile collapsed, replaced by something darker. "We all got our reasons, right? Mine's waiting at home with medical bills bigger than our mortgage." He looked away, but not before I caught something in his eyes. Guilt? Fear? Some choices ain't really choices at all. You'll understand soon enough. That last part felt like a warning, but before I could push him on it, his radio crackled to life. Andy's voice, distorted by static, crawled through the speaker. "Manny, status report." Manny's entire demeanor changed. His shoulders snapped straight. His expression went blank. "All clear, sir. Showing the new hire around. Heading back now. Make sure he understands." Andy paused. "Everything." "Yes, sir." Manny clicked the radio off and turned to me with a forced smile. "Boss calls. Let's head back." That same night, Manny left to do a routine check, leaving me to start my first patrol. My radio chirped as he vanished around a corner. "Keep your footsteps light, man. The place can hear you." He sounded like he was half joking, but only half. I started at the main entrance, a gaping maw with rails snaking inside like a rusted tongue disappearing down a pitch-black throat that seemed to swallow my flashlight beam whole. The faded sign above read Brockford Main Tunnel, established 1908, the lettering worn to ghostly impressions by a century of indifferent time. A brass lantern hung on a hook nearby, its flame dancing weakly like it was gasping for air, struggling against invisible currents that wanted it extinguished. The binder's warning flashed through my mind. Check the lanterns, but never relight them. My fingers itched to add fuel, to fix the dying light. I'd always been the type to repair what was broken, but something in me, something wiser than conscious thought, kept my hands still. The deeper I walked, the more the mine closed in around me. Coal dust invaded my nostrils, coating them with a gritty film that mixed with a damp, metallic scent, like old pennies left in the rain. My flashlight caught decaying support beams black with age, their wood soft and fibrous where moisture had penetrated. In puddles that reflected fractured funhouse mirror versions of my light, rainbow slick films of oil writhed and shifted. The shadows. Christ, the shadows. They seemed to move just a fraction of a second after I did, as if mimicking my movements with a deliberate delay. Every few minutes I'd test the radio, calling Manny with a quiet, "All clear so far, over." His static-filled "good to hear" was as welcome as water in a desert, a tiny tether to another human voice in the oppressive silence that seemed to study me, evaluate me as I passed. The tunnels branched like veins, forming a maze that seemed designed to confuse anyone who entered. Rusted signs pointed to old shafts. S3, E7, Foreman's office. Another rule from the binder. Respect the old foreman's office. Don't enter if it's open. My flashlight swept across a corroded door with flaking green paint, padlocked with a chain thick enough to restrain a bull. One less thing to worry about. Then I heard it. A faint moan, barely perceptible. Every muscle in my body locked up. Just the wind, right? Manny had warned me the old lift shaft played tricks with sound. Still, I quickened my pace. As I rounded a corner, I collided with someone. A woman with wild eyes and clothes that looked slept in for days. She clutched my arm with surprising strength, her nails digging through my sleeve. "You're new," she said, voice rough as sandpaper. "Are you another one of them?" "Another what?" I reached for my baton. "Ma'am, this is private property. You shouldn't be here." She laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Private? Nothing's private here. They see everything. They hear everything." Her grip tightened. Has Manny told you about the quotas yet? About what happens when they get hungry? Lady, I don't know what you're talking about. I kept my voice level, though my pulse was racing. You need to leave. Her eyes narrowed. You don't know? Or you don't want to know? She leaned closer, her breath sour. Ask Manny about his sister. Ask him what really happened to Sarah. Footsteps echoed down the corridor. The woman's head snapped up like a startled deer. He's coming, she whispered. Don't trust him. Don't trust any of them. She pressed something cold and metallic into my palm, a key on a frayed cord, then darted away, vanishing into a side tunnel. Seconds later, Andy appeared, his gaunt face twisted with anger. Who were you talking to? He demanded. Some trespasser, I said, pocketing the key without thinking. A woman. Seemed confused. I was just telling her to leave. Andy's eyes narrowed to slits. What did she tell you? Nothing that made sense, I lied, instinct telling me to keep her words to myself. Rambling about people watching her. Andy stared at me for a long moment, then seemed to relax slightly. Local crazy. She's been warned about trespassing before. If you see her again, detain her and call me immediately. He turned to go, then paused. And Thomas? Be careful who you listen to around here. Not everyone has your best interests at heart. The irony of that coming from him wasn't lost on me. When I circled back to the entrance, the lantern flickered ominously. The flame seemed to dim as I passed, like it recognized me and recoiled. Or maybe I was just spooking myself, seeing threats in ordinary objects like some rookie on his first assignment. Back in the trailer, I jotted notes in the log with a pen that kept dying. No trespassers, no major hazards. Strange moaning from far shaft. Possibly ventilation issue. I made no mention of the woman or the key, which I now examined under the dim light. It was brass, old, with a strange symbol etched into the head, something that looked like a distorted eye. I tried to sleep, but kept jerking awake at every noise. Metal contracting in the cold, rodents scurrying in the walls. At one point, I swear I heard whistling, a melancholy tune like an old mining song my grandfather used to hum. I forced myself to stay put, remembering Manny's warning, never follow the whistling. On my second night, I found Manny lurking at the admin building entrance, face pinched with worry as he offered me half a sandwich from the break room. I declined. The mine's stench had killed my appetite. Andy's on edge, Manny said as we walked toward the first tunnel series. I think that woman you ran into, Lisa, she's been poking around. Don't let him catch you talking to her, okay? I'm not planning on it, I said casually. She's the one who found me. Manny's lips pressed into a thin line. Yeah, she does that. It's not great. She's been obsessed ever since her husband disappeared. I stopped walking. Disappeared? Manny swallowed hard, twisting his flashlight nervously. Yeah, well, not the first. The mine's had a few vanishings. People come, people go. Some are rumored to be accidents. Some, like her husband. No body ever found. He delivered this in a level, almost rehearsed tone like he'd told the story 100 times. The woman's ragged appearance flashed in my mind, her desperate eyes, her mention of quotas. My stomach knotted, but Manny changed the subject so quickly it felt deliberate. We patrolled the main corridor, Manny pointing out hazards older than dirt, rotting beams, cave-in debris nobody had bothered clearing. Occasionally, I caught him glancing at my pocket, where the key must have been visible. A tension crackled between us, small but impossible to ignore. Midway through the shift, Manny left for a supply run, warning me not to stray from the main tunnels. Naturally, that was my cue to investigate the narrower passageways he'd conspicuously avoided. If Manny was hiding something, that's where I'd find it. I ended up in a cramped corridor that dead-ended at a storage room. Door locked. None of Andy's keys fit. Curiosity burning, I tried the brass key from Lisa. Click. The door swung open smoothly. Interesting. The key opened more than one door, Or perhaps certain locks recognized something about it. Either way, my pulse quickened as I stepped inside a space Manny had warned me away from. The room was cluttered with crates sealed by rusted nails, the air heavy with mildew that coated my lungs. I pried open one crate with my flashlight, finding stacks of old mine documents from the 1920s through 1950s, shift rosters, accident reports, supply inventories, standard stuff, until I came across a file labeled Personnel Adjustments, Private. My heart pounded as I flipped it open. The dates jumped around, but every few years there was an entry describing incidents, each noting how the Watchers had demanded an offering. Names were listed: men, women, sometimes local kids who'd wandered in. Next to them, words like given, taken, or spared. My stomach twisted. One note from 1972 read, "The Watchers are restless again. They claim the yield is low, that our faith is waning. If we do not meet the quota by the next moon cycle, the old tunnels will flood. They have promised a collapse to seal us all in. The foreman has selected 2 drifters who will not be missed." My mouth went dry. The Watchers. Quotas. Collapse if not appeased. This wasn't superstition. These were methodical records. The mine foreman had apparently collaborated with something living in these tunnels. I tucked the document into my pocket, my hands trembling. I had the distinct feeling of being watched. A shadow seemed to flicker at the edge of my vision. I swung my flashlight toward it but saw nothing. The door behind me creaked, nearly making me drop the light. I whirled around, expecting Manny or Andy, but no one was there. The door stood open, as if inviting me to leave. I took the hint. Clutching the old documents, I hurried out, slamming the door behind me with a metallic clang. The key in my pocket seemed heavier than before, as if the metal itself disapproved of my discovery. That night ended quietly, though I sensed Manny and Andy both knew I'd been snooping. The next day, I woke to find a note slipped under my trailer door. Meet me by the collapsed S2 entry. Sundown. Come alone. No signature, but I recognized the tight handwriting from the woman who'd pressed the key into my palm. Lisa. Great, I muttered, staring at the paper. This can't possibly go wrong. But my curiosity was a hungry beast I couldn't starve. I laced up my boots and headed out as the sun disappeared. The S2 entry was a side tunnel near the western property edge, half buried under decades of rubble. Broken support beams jutted at odd angles like massive splinters, the air thick with the stench of rot and stagnant water that made my eyes water. Lisa materialized from behind a shattered wooden beam, her frame hunched and smaller than I remembered. Even in the dim glow of her lantern, I could see she looked worse. Cheeks hollow, lips cracked and bleeding in one corner. "I didn't think you'd come," she whispered. "You left me a note," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "That suggests you thought I might." She gave a humorless laugh. "Touché." We stood in uncomfortable silence, the darkness pressing in around us. Her eyes flicked to my pocket. "You have the key, right? Don't lie." I exhaled. "Yes." "Good." She nodded slowly. "You'll need it soon enough." "Need it for what?" I challenged. "Why don't you tell me what the hell is going on here? People keep talking about Watchers, about quotas. I've found records. People have died down here, sacrificed, if these documents are to be believed." Her eyes glistened in the lantern light. "Because it's true," she said, her voice breaking. "My husband, James, discovered the truth. He was site manager before Andy. The Watchers are real. They aren't ghosts or hallucinations. They're something else. They feed off the living, demand sacrifices to keep the mind stable." "Keep the mind stable?" I repeated, incredulous. She gestured at the collapsed tunnel. "This is what happens when the Watchers aren't appeased. Collapses, floods, gas leaks. Bad enough to kill entire crews. The foreman or caretaker has always paid them off, fed them people, to prevent a catastrophe." I wanted to call her crazy, but those storage room documents were hard to dismiss. "How does Manny fit in?" She hesitated, biting her lip until I thought she'd draw blood. He's part of it now. He's the Watcher's fetch man. Brings them strays, new hires who don't know better. At least that's the rumor. He'll do anything to keep them off his back. A chill shot down my spine. Manny, with his friendly smile and kind eyes, luring people to their deaths? That can't be right, I said, my voice unsteady. He's helped me. He warned me about the whistling, about the foreman's office. He told me to follow the rules. Of course he did, Lisa snapped. Doesn't want them devouring you prematurely. Or maybe his conscience is torn. I don't know. But I've seen him lead more than one drifter into the deeper tunnels, and they never come out. He'll do anything to get his sister back. The bitterness in her voice made my gut clench. I remembered how Manny had changed the subject when I asked about Sarah. He said she died in a cave-in. Maybe. Or maybe the Watchers took her. It's the same in the end. She's gone. And Manny, well, he's desperate. The obvious question finally bubbled to the surface. How do you know all this, Lisa? If your husband disappeared. Her eyes darkened. James didn't just vanish overnight. Before the Watchers took him completely, he managed to get messages to me. Notes, recordings, a journal. For weeks, he documented everything while pretending to be Andy's perfect employee. Her voice cracked slightly. He was gathering evidence, planning to expose everything. The final entry in his journal just said, "They're in the walls. They know." That was 3 years ago. She pulled out a small, battered notebook from her jacket. I've been adding my own observations since then. Watching, learning their patterns, the names of everyone who disappeared, the cycle of the sacrifices. She laughed bitterly. I know more about the Watchers than most of their caretakers. Knowledge is the only weapon I have. We stood in tense silence, the flickering lantern throwing dancing shadows on the collapsed rubble. Finally, Lisa took a shuddering breath. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "Why give me the key?" She shrugged, her thin shoulders trembling. "Because you're new. You're not fully under their control yet. If we can sabotage their arrangement, maybe we can bury the Watchers for good. Maybe we can free the people they've taken." Her eyes burned with fervent hope and desperation. "We can do what James tried to do, what Manny was too afraid to finish." Her need was almost tangible, like heat radiating from her body. Was she truly trying to help, or just using me? I couldn't tell. Still, I found myself drawn in by the possibility of stopping whatever horror was happening here. "Where do I start?" I asked finally. She brushed greasy hair from her face. "Find the old sublevels. There's a tunnel network below the main system. Some call it the Worm Way. That's where the Watchers are strongest, where they live. The key unlocks corridors no standard key touches. If you go deep enough, you'll find them. And you'll find their hearts, or their source." I grimaced. "That sounds suicidal." "It might be," she admitted. "But the Watcher's power stems from something hidden deep in the mine, something connected to every corridor, every collapsed shaft. Break it, and you break their hold." The shadows seemed to shift in the debris. The air suddenly felt heavier. "Lisa, if I do this, I need answers. Real ones. Who exactly is Andy? He's no ordinary caretaker." Her expression darkened. "He's the Watcher's favorite puppet. A caretaker, yes, but more than that. A conduit." The words hung between us like lead weights. "And Manny?" Her expression softened slightly. "I think Manny was just a naive worker who stumbled onto the truth. They used his fear, his love for his sister. If you find a way to break their hold, maybe Manny can be saved too. But don't trust him blindly." I recalled Manny's pained expression, how he'd shift from talking about finances to strange silences about certain tunnels. "I'll be careful," I promised. She grabbed my arm, her fingers digging in. "Try to save James too if there's something left of him down there." Tears filled her wild eyes. "But if you can't free them, make sure they don't suffer." I nodded, throat tight. Before I could speak again, she let go and turned away, fleeing into the darkness. Her lantern bobbed and receded until it was just a pinprick in the gloom. Then nothing. I spent the following day in a fog, half sleeping and half researching. I pored over the documents I'd taken, searching for references to these wormway tunnels. I found only cryptic mentions of expansions done in the 1940s, older levels partially collapsed. Manny stopped by midday with groceries from town, milk, bread, a few apples. The normalcy of it felt absurd against everything I'd learned. "You doing okay?" Manny asked, studying my face. I forced a laugh. "Define okay." He grimaced, setting the groceries on my rickety counter. "Yeah, we've all been there." I watched him carefully. "Manny, this might sound weird, but that woman, Lisa, she told me some wild stories about watchers, about quotas." He froze, jaw clenching. "She's a lunatic," he said flatly. "Don't listen to her. She's making stuff up to blame the mine for her problems. She said your sister." "Screw her," he snapped, the sudden venom startling me. Then he closed his eyes, breathing heavily. "Look, man, sorry, but she doesn't know what she's talking about." Heavy silence fell between us. Manny stared at his boots, one hand trembling at his side. That told me everything. Lisa's story had hit a nerve. "You sure you're okay, Manny?" I asked softly. He forced a tight smile. "Let's just get through tonight's shift, all right? Don't go poking around the deeper tunnels. They're not safe. If Andy finds out you've been snooping, I don't want to see you vanish like the others." He left abruptly, leaving me convinced that Manny was drowning in guilt. Was he trying to protect me from Andy or from himself? That night, my patrol started normally. Check the entrance, ensure no new collapses, log everything. The binder felt like a lead weight in my hands, each rule a personal accusation. The distant whistling seemed almost mocking, like the watchers were daring me to break their rules. Around 2 a.m., I spotted an unmarked corridor lit by a single lantern burning with an unnatural blue tinge. Against every survival instinct, I followed it, each careful step taking me deeper than I'd ever gone. The passage ended at a massive steel door with multiple locks. Rust streaked the metal, thick chains crisscrossing it like a spider had spun a metal web. This definitely wasn't on the standard patrol route. I tried Manny's keys. Nothing. Then, heart racing, I tried Lisa's brass key. One by one, the locks clicked open without resistance, chains falling away with a heavy clatter. Too easy, like the door had been waiting for me. I pushed it open, finding a spacious chamber carved from raw stone. A sickly yellow light buzzed overhead. Metal shelves lined the walls, loaded with old crates. But what grabbed my attention was the large cage in the center, surrounded by rags, broken glass, and what looked disturbingly like dried blood. I froze when I saw what was inside. A single shoe, battered and dirt-encrusted, lying on its side. Nothing else. Whoever had owned it was long gone. "Jesus," I whispered, stepping closer. The cage door hung ajar, its lock twisted open. For the second time that night, I felt eyes on me, raising every hair on my body. Then a voice croaked from behind a stack of crates. "Don't scream." I nearly jumped out of my skin. Flashlight raised, I edged around the crates. A man cowered there, hair and beard overgrown, face coated with grime. He wore tattered remnants of what might have once been a uniform. His eyes bulged with terror. "Who are you?" I managed, pulse hammering. He coughed, his throat working painfully. "Name's Kevin. Used to work here. Long time ago." "How long?" I dreaded the answer. He swallowed with difficulty. "I don't remember the year. Maybe 8, 9 years. It all blurs together." Cold horror washed over me. "You've been down here that long?" He glanced at the cage, flinching at the sight. "They kept me locked up, fed me scraps. I think they forgot about me eventually, or lost interest. My mind faded in and out. Haven't had real food or water in days." I offered him my canteen. He gulped thirstily, water dribbling down his filthy beard. "You shouldn't be here," he said, trembling. "If they find you with me, they'll—" He cut off as footsteps echoed in the corridor. Flashlight off, I yanked Kevin behind the crates with me. We crouched, the stench of his unwashed body making me gag silently. The footsteps stopped near the cage. A familiar voice muttered, "Nothing. Where did that bastard scurry off to?" "Manny." He sighed heavily. "Andy's gonna kill me if I don't find him. I should have tightened the lock." Dizziness swept through me. Manny had caged someone? My fists clenched around the flashlight. Kevin's eyes pleaded with me to stay hidden. Manny paced the chamber, boots scraping on stone. "Damn it," he muttered. "I know you're in here. Let's not make this worse. I can still bring you to them peacefully." Rage boiled in me, but fear kept me pinned. Manny's tone was desperate, sorrow threading through it. Like he hated what he was doing, but couldn't stop himself. After a tense minute, Manny stormed out, cursing. Kevin trembled beside me, tears cutting clean tracks through the dirt on his face. "He's trying to bring you to the Watchers," Kevin croaked. "You can't trust him." I exhaled shakily. "Come on, we have to move before he comes back." Together we slipped out and relocked the door. Kevin flinched at every sound, every drip of water. My heart pounded with betrayal. Manny, my friendly guide, locking people in cages to feed them to whatever lurked below. But why? Lisa had hinted Manny was forced into it for his sister's sake. That might explain the guilt in his eyes, but how deep did his involvement go? I led Kevin to a secluded corner near the break room, scrounging for any leftover food. I found half a box of stale crackers and expired canned fruit. He devoured the crackers like they were filet mignon. "You can't stay here," I whispered. Kevin shook his head vigorously. "I just want out, man. Out of this mine. Please help me." The raw fear in his eyes cut through me. But how could I smuggle a half-starved man past Manny and Andy? There were cameras, and Andy always seemed to materialize when least expected. "Tomorrow," I promised, ignoring the rule about not making vows underground. "We'll get you out tomorrow when I can find a safe path. Just stay hidden in the trailer for now." The words hung in the air. A tiny warning bell rang in my head. Don't make promises underground. But I dismissed it. This was a human life. I wasn't letting some bizarre superstition stop me from doing the right thing. Kevin nodded gratefully, tears welling in his sunken eyes. "Thank you," he choked out. We split up, with Kevin sneaking into a maintenance closet I'd spotted earlier. Ironically, a spot Manny had shown me where no cameras worked. As I walked away, a hollow ache formed in my chest. Some part of me already sensed that vow might be a death sentence. When I returned to the trailer at dawn, Manny was waiting on the steps, shoulders slumped, staring at nothing. "Long night," he said softly. "Yeah," I replied, my voice tight. "How about you?" He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "I was looking for someone, a trespasser. Didn't find him." I feigned ignorance. "Maybe he left on his own." Manny gave me a look I couldn't read, somewhere between desperation and defeat. "Listen, Daryl, there's something you should know. Andy is ramping up the schedule." I frowned. "Schedule for what?" Manny chewed his lip. "The Watchers need a quota soon. Andy wants to ensure we have the proper tribute before the next full moon. Otherwise, they might punish us. Collapses, random disappearances. Worse. You're talking about living sacrifices," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. "Do you even hear yourself?" He grimaced, eyes watering. "I know. Believe me, I know how it sounds. But you don't understand the alternative. The Watchers can collapse entire sections of this mine, kill everyone in it. They've done it before. I can't let that happen again." "Again?" I repeated. He nodded bleakly. "That's how Sarah died. The Watchers gave me a choice. Help them gather people or watch them bring the roof down on her. I froze, Daryl. I froze just like you did that day with your client." By the time I decided they'd taken her, his voice cracked. I've been trying to find a way to free her ever since. They promised if I help them enough times, they'll let her go. And you believe that? I snapped, outraged. They're monsters, Manny, or some kind of malevolent force. You think they'll honor a deal? He laughed bitterly. What else can I do? If there's even a chance I can save her, I'll take it. He rose, stepping closer until we were almost nose to nose. Don't judge me when you don't know what it's like. I thought of Kevin, cowering behind crates, and fought the urge to slam Manny against the trailer wall. Instead, I backed off. Manny's moral compromise was bigger than I could have imagined. He saw the anger in my eyes and said quietly, I'm sorry. I don't want to drag you into this, but Andy's orders are clear. We might need to find a new offering. There's talk of grabbing Lisa or maybe some vagrants from the next town over. He paused, voice trembling. I don't want to do it, Daryl. But if we don't, the Watchers will bury the entire mine, bury us along with it. 1,000 responses jammed in my throat, none of them coherent. Manny looked away, tears shining in his eyes. Then he trudged off, leaving me to grapple with the horrifying reality. He thought he had no choice, but I had a choice, and I'd already promised Kevin I'd get him out. The Watchers wanted tributes. Manny was willing to hunt them. Andy was orchestrating the entire twisted game. I felt like I was sinking in quicksand, every breath pulling me deeper. That evening, as I prepared for another shift, Lisa found me again, this time hiding behind a rusted generator outside my trailer. Her eyes were wild, her lips quivering. They've moved up their timetable, she hissed. I overheard Andy telling Manny that the Watchers demand a sacrifice soon. I nodded grimly. Manny told me. She rubbed her arms, shivering despite the mild night. Then you know there's no more time. We have to destroy their nest. There's a route into a deeper labyrinth, the Wormway. It bypasses the main tunnels so we can reach the Watcher's core. She showed me a tattered map, water-stained and crumbling at the edges. Strange symbols dotted the lower sections like warnings. Near the bottom was a black X. That's where James disappeared, she murmured, pointing. He tried to sabotage them. I think he got close. If you can finish the job, maybe it'll break their power. Emotions churned inside me. Fear, guilt, anger at Manny's complicity, concern for Kevin, and pity for Lisa. Let's do it tonight, I decided, though dread knotted my stomach. She nodded. We have to be careful. Andy has Watchers, human Watchers, not the creatures, patrolling. They're loyal to him. I remembered Manny's radio calls, Andy's appearances at odd hours. How do we get past Andy? Lisa's mouth curved into a grim smile. We have a friend on the inside. My eyebrows shot up. Who? Instead of answering, she led me to a ventilation hatch near the admin building. We crouched behind stacked pallets. After a few minutes, footsteps approached. Out stepped Kevin. He looked frail and terrified, but determined. I blinked in surprise. You two know each other? Lisa nodded. He's helped me before, gathering information on disappearances. I thought he was dead until recently, but Manny must have locked him away. Kevin's face hardened. No more hiding. I know a path around Andy's patrol route. I used it once to help a friend escape. Didn't end well, but might work for you. Guilt twisted my gut. I'd promised Kevin an immediate escape, yet here he was risking his life again. The vow I'd made weighed on me. Don't make promises underground. And I could almost feel the mine's walls tightening in silent judgment. Let's go, Kevin urged. Before Manny catches us. We pried open the vent. Lisa entered first, then Kevin, then me. The metal duct led downward, a claustrophobic chute that grated against our clothes. Warm air blasted our faces, carrying the reek of coal dust and sulfur. Kevin's route led us to an abandoned section no longer on official maps. Tunnels angled downward, reinforced by rotting wooden beams. The deeper we went, the hotter it got, sweat soaking through my shirt. My flashlight gave only feeble light, so Lisa and Kevin each carried small LED lanterns. With every step, pressure built in my chest, like the ground itself was pushing in. I mentally reviewed the rules. We rounded a bend to find a corridor with walls coated in what looked like black fungus or mold. Kevin gagged, pulling his shirt over his nose. Lisa's eyes watered, but she pressed forward, jaw set with determination. Suddenly, a deep voice called from behind us. "Halt!" We spun to see a figure emerging from the darkness. Manny. He aimed his flashlight at us, expression grim. "You can't do this," he said, voice urgent though quiet. "The Watchers will kill us all if you sabotage them now. There's a system. We meet the quota. They stay quiet." Lisa hissed. "That system is murder." Manny winced. "You think I like it? But you can't beat them. This has been going on for generations. My family, Andy, the entire Foreman line. If you break the Watchers' hold, the mine might implode, or they might unleash something worse than a collapse." I stepped forward. "What are you saying, Manny? You want to keep feeding them innocent people forever?" His face twitched. "You don't understand. They promised if I just deliver the next tribute, they'll release Sarah's soul. I can't walk away from that." Lisa shook her head in disgust. "And you believe that? Monsters who feed on human lives telling you they'll do something kind? Wake up, Manny." He turned wild eyes on her. "I've seen it, Lisa. I've heard my sister's voice echoing in these tunnels, calling to me. She's somewhere in the walls. The Watchers said with one more big sacrifice they'll let her go. That's worth any price." Kevin, voice trembling, spoke up. "They locked me up for years, Manny. Tore me from my family. My little girl thinks I'm dead. Do you think the Watchers would just let me walk free if I gave them a tribute? You know they're lying." Manny's flashlight wavered. His eyes shimmered with tears. For a second, I saw the conflict raging within him. Then he squared his shoulders. "I won't let you pass," he said, voice shaking. "I can't let you sabotage the Watchers. If you do, everything they've promised me is gone. Sarah is gone, and the Watchers might release a cataclysm on this region. I can't let that happen." He pulled a small handgun from his belt, something I'd never seen him carry. Lisa gasped sharply. My heart hammered as I realized Manny wasn't bluffing. He was cornered, terrified, and determined. I raised my palms. "Manny, put the gun down. We can find another way." "Another way?" He laughed bitterly. "I've been searching for another way for 3 goddamn years. It doesn't exist. It's them or us." Lisa whispered. "You'd shoot us? After all this time?" His hand trembled on the pistol. "If it means saving Sarah and saving the rest of us from a cave-in? Maybe." Tears slid down his cheeks. "I'm sorry." A piercing whistle echoed through the corridor, clear as day. Manny stiffened, eyes darting around. Kevin grabbed my arm. "That's not the Watchers whistling. That's Andy. I recognize his signal." From a side tunnel, Andy emerged with an eerie grin on his gaunt face. Behind him stood 2 burly men I'd never seen, each holding a makeshift club. Manny took a step back, pistol still raised. Andy's voice slithered through the corridor like a snake. "So, Manny, you found our little renegades." He clasped his hands behind his back. "Perfect." Lisa spat at the ground. "Get away from us, you monster." Andy ignored her, turning his dark gaze on Manny. "Your timing is impeccable. The Watchers are restless. We need to secure the next tribute tonight. You did well corralling them here." Manny faltered, confusion crossing his features. "I'm not corralling them. I was trying to—" Andy stepped forward, resting a hand on Manny's shoulder. Manny flinched as though burned. "Come on, Manny. You know we can't let them sabotage our lifeline." He nodded at the thugs who advanced. Kevin shrank back. Lisa set her jaw, fists clenched. I looked at Manny, silently begging him to remember his conscience. But Manny's eyes were fixed on Andy, searching for any sign of mercy. Andy's lips twisted in a paternal smile. "Hand me the gun, Manny." The Watchers will be pleased with multiple tributes. It's more than enough to buy your sister's freedom. We found Kevin. He'll make a fine addition to the feast. Lisa here, also rebellious. And our dear new guard. He spread his arms theatrically at me. Such a strong will to break. They'll devour you nicely. Manny's arm shook so violently the gun nearly fell. You said only one tribute was needed, he whispered, devastation creeping into his voice. One more to free Sarah. Andy shrugged. Circumstances change. The Watchers indicated they want a feast, Manny. They said feeding them just one poor soul might not be enough this time. We have 4 right here. This can end all at once. No more deals, no more uncertainty. Sarah back, you free from guilt, the Watchers satiated for years. Manny looked physically ill. But Lisa, Kevin, they're just people. Andy leaned in, dropping his voice. If you balk now, Manny, your sister stays in the dark. The Watchers tear her mind apart. She'll become part of the walls, screaming for eternity. You don't want that, do you? Lisa hissed. He's lying, Manny. He's always lying. Manny's expression crumbled. Torn between saving his sister and damning innocence, he glanced from me to Lisa to Kevin. Tears dripped off his chin. I can't, he stammered. Make your choice, Andy said, voice tightening with impatience. Give me the gun and step aside or resist. Either way, you'll watch them die. Time seemed to stop. Manny's eyes locked on mine, filled with regret. Then, with a trembling hand, he extended the pistol grip first toward Andy. My stomach dropped. Manny was surrendering our only leverage. Andy's thin lips curled in triumph as he took the gun. Manny collapsed to his knees, burying his face in his hands, sobbing. Any illusions I had shattered. Manny, my only potential ally, had folded under Andy's manipulations. Now we faced 3 armed men, plus Manny's turned loyalty, in the darkest corner of the mine. Andy aimed the pistol at my chest. Take them, he ordered the thugs. We'll bring them to the Watchers. The 2 brutes seized Lisa and Kevin first, binding their wrists with rough rope. Lisa struggled, spitting curses, until one punched her in the stomach, doubling her over. Kevin barely resisted. He looked half dead already. Andy leveled the gun at me. Move. We marched deeper into the wormway, Manny trailing behind, silent tears streaking his dirt-smudged face. My mind raced desperately. If we reached the Watcher's lair, we were dead. I had to do something. But the corridors were maze-like, lined with unstable rock formations. One wrong move could trigger a landslide. Plus, Andy had the gun. I forced myself to stay calm, scanning for any opening. The path snaked lower, the air turning acrid. We passed through a section where the walls shimmered with some oily substance, reflecting twisted versions of ourselves in the lantern light. I glimpsed Lisa's terrified face, Kevin's haggard features, Manny's guilt-ridden eyes, and Andy's triumphant grin. My own reflection disturbed me most. My face seemed warped into something monstrous. Was it the oil distorting my features? Or a glimpse of what the Watchers saw in us? Occasionally, moans reverberated from the stone, low and mournful. Human voices in pain. I tried not to think about whether it was an echo or something far worse. At one bend, Manny dared to whisper near me, "Daryl, I'm so sorry." His voice cracked. I swallowed my rage. This is how you repay me? You lured me down here to feed me to the Watchers. He shook his head frantically. I didn't know Andy would want all of you. I thought maybe. He trailed off, voice breaking. Maybe what? He exhaled, shoulders slumped. That we could just hand over Kevin and call it a night. My anger flared hot. Kevin had already endured years in a cage. Manny would toss him to the Watchers to save his sister. I spat in disgust. Manny flinched like I'd slapped him. I had no words left for him. We arrived at a massive cavern that dwarfed any space I'd seen before. A vast expanse with a ceiling lost in darkness, stalactites dripping water in a steady, maddening rhythm. In the center, a deep pit yawned, ringed by rusted metal plates set into the stone. Andy straightened, a reverent look crossing his gaunt face. "Here we are," he announced. "This is one of their feeding pits. The Watchers will come when we call." Lisa squirmed against her bonds, face twisted with fear and hatred. Kevin stared at the pit, expression hollow. I assessed our situation. Single exit behind us, guarded by two thugs, Manny and Andy with the gun. No obvious escape route. Andy pulled a long, thin whistle from his pocket, different from what we'd heard before. He raised it to his lips. "Don't," I hissed, but he blew a short, discordant sequence. The sound bounced off the cavern walls, returning as a warped echo. Then, silence. At first, nothing happened. Then a deep vibration rumbled through the stone beneath our feet. The pit glowed faintly with sickly green light radiating from far below. The Watchers, stirring. Manny trembled. The brutes shifted nervously, clubs raised as if that would help against subterranean horrors. Lisa's eyes widened in terror. Andy smiled. A shifting shape began to rise from the pit, like black oil with a faint shimmer. Then a chorus of voices spoke in unison, resonating from the walls. "Hungry. We are hungry." Bile rose in my throat. The Watchers were real. They were speaking. My mind struggled to process the impossibility of an entity made of darkness and voices. Andy bowed his head. "We bring you tributes. 4, strong in body and will." The shape roiled, tendrils of shadow reaching upward. Promises. Broken. New vow. Feed. Horror washed over me. The Watchers could sense my vow to Kevin. Don't make promises underground. They had caught my broken vow. Would that doom me? In the swirling mass, I glimpsed faint silhouettes of faces, jaws twisted in silent screams. Lisa gasped, tears spilling as she saw one particular face, a young man's features, contorted in agony. "James," she choked. "James, is that you?" The Watchers, all ours. You come, feed. Lisa sobbed, lurching forward. Kevin tried to steady her with his bound hands. Manny squeezed his eyes shut, tears streaming. Andy raised an arm. "Take them, Watchers. Sate your hunger and release Manny's sister. That is our bargain." A ripple passed through the darkness, like a wave of heat. They seemed to hesitate, focusing on Manny, who cowered. Then the voices whispered, "You have brought us many, but your sister is ours. You break vow. You break vow." Manny gaped, confusion and terror washing over his face. "But I delivered everyone. I never broke. You made a vow to protect your sister. You failed. Vow undone. She belongs to us. We keep her mind, her spirit." Manny let out a ragged scream, staggering back. Andy's face darkened with annoyance. "Wait, we had a deal," he growled. "We do not yield what we devour. Manny's sister is part of the walls. Forever." A savage satisfaction flashed through me. Manny's entire purpose for these atrocities was in vain. He'd been deceived from the start. The Watchers had no intention of releasing Sarah. Manny stared at the swirling darkness, eyes wide with despair. Andy hissed, "You lied to Manny? Then you must at least accept these tributes, Watchers, or face the consequences." He waved at us, furious. "We accept. Feed us. Then we decide." A dozen tendrils of liquid shadow erupted from the pit, latching onto the rim. Andy stepped back, stumbling as one brushed near him. The brutes shrieked, dropping their clubs. The Watchers advanced, forming pulsing columns around the edges of the pit, drifting toward us. Terror hammered in my chest. This was it. Fight or be devoured. My gaze locked with Manny's, who still knelt in shock, gunless, all illusions shattered. "Manny," I said in a low, urgent voice, "they lied to you. You can't save Sarah now, but you can save us." His eyes flicked to me, hopeless. "How?" I jerked my head toward Andy, who was fixated on the Watchers. "We take out Andy, free Lisa and Kevin, And we run. Maybe we can seal the Watchers in here. The Watchers hissed, their numerous voices echoing. Manny visibly gathered himself. He rose, fists clenched. I saw something snap in him. Maybe the last bit of humanity that refused to watch more innocent people die for nothing. He lunged at Andy's side, trying to grab the gun. Andy twisted, smashing Manny across the face with the pistol. Manny reeled, blood spraying from his nose. The Watchers, apparently indifferent to who fought who, continued oozing forward. Seizing the chaos, I rushed the nearest thug, a stocky man with a shaved head. He swung his club at me, but I ducked and drove my shoulder into his gut. We toppled onto the rocky floor, grappling in the flickering greenish light. My elbow caught him under the jaw, and he slumped. Freed from his watch, Lisa scrambled away. Kevin, still bound, flailed as the second thug tried to yank him toward the Watchers. "One less to chase," the thug roared, evidently wanting to toss Kevin in. Lisa kicked the thug behind the knee. He staggered, giving Kevin a chance to wrench free. Kevin used his bound fists like a battering ram, smashing the man's nose. The thug crashed to the ground, cursing. Meanwhile, Andy hammered Manny with vicious blows. Manny groaned, pinned to the ground. Andy pressed the gun against Manny's temple. "You worthless traitor. Everything we built, undone by your pathetic guilt." I dove, tackling Andy. The gun went off, the bullet whizzing past Manny's ear. Andy slammed into the ground with a snarl. For a skinny man, he was disturbingly strong. His limbs felt like steel cables. My old security instincts roared to life, though, and I pinned his wrist, slamming it against the floor until the pistol clattered away. Manny, dazed but alive, managed to grab the gun. "Stop!" Manny roared, aiming it at Andy. Andy froze, glaring up with pure venom. "You fool! You'll kill us all." Manny's eyes flicked to the Watchers, now looming at the pit's edge, tendrils extended. Any second they'd lunge. Manny grabbed Andy by the collar, yanking him upright. "You lied to me about Sarah. You used me. Why shouldn't I feed you to them?" Andy sneered. "Because you don't have the guts." We all flinched as the Watchers screeched. They slithered across the floor, inch by inch, closing in. Lisa desperately tried to untie Kevin's wrists. I watched Manny weigh his options, kill Andy or try something else. In the end, Manny's battered conscience won. With a guttural cry, he yanked Andy to the side, away from the Watchers. "Not like this," Manny spat. "I won't become you." Andy's face contorted with rage. "Then I will." With a sudden burst of strength, he twisted from Manny's grip and sprinted for the corridor. Manny fired once, missing wide. Andy vanished into the tunnel, leaving Manny trembling. With Andy gone, we turned to face the swirling darkness. Lisa and Kevin huddled against the cavern wall, trembling. Manny stood beside me, the pistol shaking in his hands, tears cutting clean tracks through the dirt on his face. The Watcher's mass pulsated like a diseased heart, tendrils of shadow stretching toward us. Then they spoke. Dozens of voices layered on top of each other, some childlike, some ancient, all distorted, all ours. "Feed. You broke your vow. We see inside you, Daryl Thomas." They knew my name. My mouth went bone dry. I stepped forward on wobbling legs, heart threatening to burst from my chest. "We're not your food," I managed, my voice cracking. A tendril whipped across the cavern faster than my eye could track, slashing the air inches from my face. The temperature dropped 20 degrees in a heartbeat. The Watcher's mass seemed to laugh. A horrible sound like fingernails dragged across slate. "We already taste your fear. So familiar. Like all the others. Even your friend Manny." The mass rippled and a face formed in its center. Sarah's face, but wrong. Her features were stretched, eyes too wide, mouth frozen in a silent scream. Manny let out a strangled sob. "Sarah," he whispered. "I tried to save you." The Sarah face twisted into a grotesque parody of a smile. Her voice came from the mass, but her lips didn't move. "Brother, you never understood. They don't want to save us." They want to wear us. Like skins. Kevin clutched Lisa's arm. We need to get out. Now. I frantically scanned the chamber. No way to fight them. No way to destroy them. The dynamite would only collapse the chamber, not kill the Watchers. They'd just find new tunnels, new victims. Fighting them was like trying to kill the wind. Then I saw it. A small drainage passage half hidden behind a pile of rubble. Maybe 6 feet high, leading away from the pit. It would be tight, but we might make it. There, I whispered, pointing. Lisa nodded, tugging Kevin toward it. Manny stood frozen, staring at the face of his sister as it morphed and changed, cycling through expressions of agony and ecstasy. Manny, I hissed. We need to go. The Watchers suddenly surged forward. A black tendril wrapped around the ankle of the still unconscious thug near the pit's edge. He woke screaming as they dragged him toward the darkness. His fingernails left bloody scratches in the stone as he tried to find purchase. We watched in horror as the Watchers enveloped him. His screaming stopped, but then his body began to twitch and jerk. His head snapped up, eyes now empty black voids, skin turning gray and translucent. When he spoke, it wasn't his voice. You cannot run from us. We are the foundation. We are in the walls, the ceiling, the air you breathe. We have always been here. The possessed man began to crawl toward us, joints bending in impossible directions, head twisted 180 degrees to face us while his body moved backward. His jaw unhinged like a snake's, stretching wider than any human mouth should. Go! I shouted, shoving Lisa and Kevin toward the drainage tunnel. Manny still stood transfixed. I grabbed his arm, the gun falling from his limp fingers. She's gone, Manny. That's not Sarah anymore. The Sarah face in the Watcher's mask split into a grin that stretched literally from ear to ear, teeth multiplying in rows like a shark's. No one leaves. You will feed us. Or join us. I yanked Manny toward the drainage tunnel. The possessed thug scuttled after us like some nightmarish spider, fingers elongated into claws that scraped across the stone. Behind him, the Watchers surged forward, the green light pulsing faster. We squeezed into the drainage tunnel, a tight fit that scraped our shoulders raw. The possessed man reached the entrance, trying to force his distorted body through. His bones cracked audibly as he compressed himself to fit. The Watchers didn't care if they destroyed their puppet in the process. I kicked at his face, my boot connecting with his forehead. He hissed, black fluid leaking from his eyes. His hand caught my ankle, nails digging in deep enough to draw blood. I kicked again, harder, feeling something crack beneath my boot. He fell back, giving us precious seconds to scramble deeper into the tunnel. The Watcher's rage followed us, a physical wave of cold hatred that made my teeth ache. Their voices echoed in the narrow space. We know your taste now, Daryl Thomas. We will find you in your dreams. We will call to you. We crawled through pitch darkness, the tunnel gradually sloping upward. After what felt like hours, we emerged into an abandoned section of the main mine, far from where we'd entered the wormway. All of us were bleeding from somewhere. Scraped knees, torn palms, cuts from sharp rocks. Kevin looked half dead. Lisa kept glancing behind us, and Manny stared at nothing, his mind clearly elsewhere. We need to get to the surface, Lisa whispered. Before they regroup, I helped Kevin to his feet. Which way? Manny finally seemed to snap back to reality. This way. There's an emergency exit shaft that bypasses the main tunnels. We followed him through a labyrinth of corridors, the walls seeming to breathe around us. Occasionally the lights would flicker, and in those brief moments of darkness, I swore I could see faces in the stone, contorted in agony, watching us pass. We had almost reached the exit shaft when a familiar figure stepped from the shadows, blocking our path. Andy. He looked different, gaunt as ever, but his eyes now had a faint green luminescence. The Watchers had gotten to him, but not fully transformed him. He was something in between now. Going somewhere? He asked, his voice layered with subtle echoes. Manny pushed me aside, lunging for Andy with a primal scream. Andy sidestepped with inhuman speed, catching Manny by the throat and lifting him off the ground with one hand. "The Watchers are very disappointed in you, Manny," Andy said, his head tilting at an unnatural angle. "You were supposed to be their faithful servant." Manny kicked and struggled, face turning purple. Lisa grabbed a chunk of fallen rock, hefting it like a weapon. I still had my piece of rebar. Andy smiled. "You can't kill me. I'm part of them now, part of the mine itself." "Let him go," I growled. Andy's gaze shifted to me, those luminous eyes seeming to look straight through my skin. "Daryl Thomas," he said, my name sounding wrong in his mouth. "The Watchers have a proposition for you." "Not interested," I snapped. "Oh, but you should be." He dropped Manny, who collapsed gasping to the floor. "You see, the Watchers need a new caretaker, someone to tend to their needs, someone with tactical instincts. They knew everything about me. They can smell your failure," Andy continued, circling me like a predator. "That moment you froze, that knife flashing toward your client. They feed on such regrets, but they can also offer redemption." "Don't listen to him," Lisa hissed. Andy's head snapped toward her, neck stretching impossibly. Silence. He turned back to me. "The Watchers will let your friends go. All of them. Manny, Lisa, Kevin. They'll walk out of here unharmed. In exchange, you stay. Become their new eyes and ears above ground. Find them what they need." "People," I said. "You mean find them people to eat?" Andy shrugged, the gesture too fluid, like his shoulders weren't connected properly. "They don't eat precisely. They experience. They absorb. They become. It's quite beautiful, in its way." "It's murder," Lisa spat. "It's survival," Andy countered. "The Watchers have lived in these rocks since before humans walked upright. They will be here long after your civilization crumbles. They are patient, but they are also hungry." I glanced at my friends. Manny still gasping on the floor, Kevin barely standing, Lisa's eyes wide with fear and determination. "What happens if I say no?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Andy's smile widened unnaturally, his teeth suddenly too numerous, too sharp. "Then I hold you all here until the Watchers regain their strength. They'll take you one by one, slowly. They'll start with her." He nodded toward Lisa. "They'll make you watch what they do to her mind. Then the old man." He gestured at Kevin. "Then poor broken Manny. And finally, when you're properly softened by witnessing what happens to your friends, they'll take you, Daryl." His voice dropped to a confidential whisper. "And they have special plans for you. They've never tasted someone with your particular flavor of trauma. The exact moment you froze, that knife slicing toward your client, your career dying in that second of hesitation. They want to replay that moment in your mind, thousands of different ways. They'll keep you conscious for years while they explore every possible variation of your failure." My mouth went dry. He knew. They knew. My most private nightmare, the thing that woke me sweating and screaming in the dark. "How do I know they'll keep their word if I stay?" I asked, voice hoarse. "They always honor their bargains," Andy said. "Unlike humans, their nature demands it. They feed on suffering, yes, but also on cosmic balance. A deal is sacred to them." "Bullshit," Manny croaked from the floor. "They promised to release Sarah." Andy nodded. "And they will, eventually, when they're done with her. Time moves differently for them. A century of torment for her might be just a few years for you." I noticed something in his phrasing. "What exactly was the promise they made to you, Manny?" I asked. "The exact words." Manny's face crumpled. "That if I helped them gather enough tributes, Sarah would be released from her suffering." Andy's lipless smile widened. "Released from suffering doesn't necessarily mean released from the mine. Death is a release too, is it not? And becoming part of the Watchers, well, that's a transformation beyond human understanding of pain. They twist language, Lisa whispered. James wrote about it. They're bound by the letter of their agreements, not the spirit. They find the loophole in every promise. Like ancient fae, Kevin muttered. Words matter. Precise words. I felt the blood drain from my face. This was a devil's bargain, with no good outcome. But if I could save the others… Daryl, don't, Lisa pleaded, grabbing my arm. We'll find another way. What other way? I asked quietly. Look at him. He's not even human anymore. We're not getting past him. Kevin's voice trembled. I spent 9 years in their cage. I'd rather die fighting. Manny stared at me, tears streaming down his face, knowing what I was considering because he'd made the same choice for Sarah. Decide now, Andy demanded. The Watchers are reconstituting. I closed my eyes briefly, thinking of all the times I'd failed. The client with the knife wound, the friends who stopped calling. Maybe this was why I'd come here. Not to escape my past, but to face it. To make a choice that wasn't freezing, but acting. If I stay, I said slowly, they all go free, unharmed. I escort them to the surface first. And if you try to escape with them? Andy's head tilted at that disturbing angle. I won't, I said, the words burning like acid. I know what a vow means down here. Andy studied me, those luminous eyes piercing through me. Finally, he nodded. Then we have a deal, Caretaker Thomas. The title fell on me like a shroud. I led my friends up the emergency exit shaft, a narrower version of the main elevator shaft, with metal rungs embedded in the wall. Andy followed at a distance, his movements jerky yet fluid, like a marionette operated by an amateur puppeteer. No one spoke during the climb. What was there to say? I'd sold myself to save them. They knew it. I knew it. When we finally reached the hatch at the top, dawn was breaking, painting the sky in streaks of purple and gold. We emerged onto a hillside behind the main property, all of us blinking in the unaccustomed light. The mine looked eerily normal from outside. No smoke, no evidence of collapse, no sign that eldritch horrors lurked below the surface. Just an old, abandoned coal operation that time had forgotten. Lisa finally broke the silence. You can't go back down there. We'll figure something out. I shook my head. They'll come after all of us. At least this way you three get out. And what about you? Kevin asked, his voice barely a whisper. What will they make you do? I had no answer. Become Andy's apprentice, I supposed. Learn how to lure drifters and vagrants into the mine. Become a monster in human skin. Manny placed a hand on my shoulder. I'm sorry, he said, tears welling in his eyes. This is my fault. I should have been stronger. I should have fought them harder. You did what you thought you had to do, I told him. For Sarah. He nodded, unable to speak. You should go, I said. All of you. Get as far from here as you can. Don't look back. Lisa embraced me fiercely. We'll find a way to help you, I promise. I almost told her not to make promises she couldn't keep, but I just hugged her back. As they turned to leave, Andy emerged from the hatch, staying carefully in the shadow of an overhanging rock. Remember our bargain, he said to me. The sun is rising. It's time to return below. I watched my friends walking away, supporting each other down the hill. Then I turned and followed Andy back into the darkness. That was 3 months ago. I'm still here at Brockford Mine, learning the routines, the secrets, the feeding schedules. Andy is teaching me everything. How to maintain the illusion of a normal security operation. How to identify potential tributes for the Watchers. How to navigate the Wormway without becoming lost. At night, in my trailer, I write in the logbooks with a pen that leaves ink like dried blood. I follow the rules now. I understand their purpose. Never stand still by the shrieking lift shaft. Ignore whistling, especially if it sounds human. Do not relight the old lanterns. Don't make promises underground. Keep your voice low. Respect the old foreman's office. Log every footstep. These aren't superstitions. They're survival mechanisms. The Watchers test the boundaries constantly, looking for weaknesses, for moments of inattention. I've learned to feel their presence, a prickling at the back of my neck, a drop in temperature, a whisper just below the threshold of hearing. Sometimes they speak to me directly, their voices seeping from the walls like groundwater. Bring us more. We hunger. Your friends abandoned you. They lied. They aren't coming back. We can taste your dreams, Daryl. So sweet with despair. I try to ignore them, but their constant murmuring erodes my sanity like water wearing down stone. They're patient. They know eventually I'll break, just like Andy did, just like the old foreman before him. One day I'll welcome their touch, invite them into my mind, let them reshape me from the inside out. But I'm fighting. Every day. I've arranged to accidentally set the cameras on loops, allowing drifters to escape before Andy can find them. I've misdirected him from potential victims. I've bought myself time. The Watchers know what I'm doing, of course. They see everything in the mine. But they're curious creatures. They want to see how long I'll resist, how creative I'll become in my defiance. It amuses them. For now. I still have my bodyguard instincts. I've started working out again, rebuilding my strength, my reflexes. Andy notices but says nothing. Perhaps he remembers his own early resistance before the Watchers broke him completely. The strangest part is that I don't freeze anymore. When danger threatens, a tunnel collapsing, Andy in one of his Watchers-influenced rages, I react instantly, decisively. It's as if that fatal hesitation has been burned out of me by the constant terror of this place. I've given myself a deadline. 3 more months. By then, I'll have gathered enough money to start over somewhere far away. I'll return to bodyguard work, where the threats are human and mortal, where bullets can stop an attacker, where evil wears a recognizable face. That's the plan anyway. But sometimes, in the deepest tunnels, I catch myself wondering if I'll really leave. The Watchers are in my head now. Not controlling me, not yet, but whispering, suggesting, planting seeds of doubt. And sometimes when I wake from nightmares of endless black corridors, I find myself thinking how simple it would be to just give in, to surrender to the Watchers' embrace, to become like Andy, like the foreman, like all the caretakers before me. Last night, I found myself standing at the entrance to the Wormway, with no memory of how I'd gotten there. A lantern had gone out nearby. My hand reached for it, fingers almost brushing the cold metal, ready to relight it. I stopped myself at the last second, remembering the rule. But for one terrible moment, I'd wanted to light it, wanted to see what would come back with the flame. I check my reflection obsessively now, looking for signs of change. Are my eyes a little greener today? Is my skin a shade paler? Do my joints bend a little too easily? Sometimes I think I see Sarah watching me from the shadows. Sometimes I hear Manny's voice calling from deep within the tunnels. Sometimes I find footprints in the dust that match Lisa's boots. But I know better than to follow. The Watchers are excellent mimics. The most terrifying part isn't the Watchers themselves. It's how familiar they're becoming. How their whispers sometimes make sense. How their offers sometimes seem reasonable. Just a few vagrants. Just drifters no one will miss. Just one sacrifice to keep them satisfied for another month. Just one more rule broken. Just one more step toward becoming them. 3 more months. That's all I need. 3 more months. And I'll walk away from Brockford Mine forever. I'll go back to the world of human threats and human evils. If they let me. If I still want to. If there's enough of Daryl Thomas left to leave. This morning I found a note slipped under my trailer door. The handwriting was eerily familiar. My own, but not quite. We are patient. We will wait. We will watch. We see your dreams, Daryl Thomas. We are your dreams now. I burned it immediately. But the words had already burned themselves into my brain. Tonight, I'll make my rounds as usual. I'll check the lanterns without relighting them. I'll ignore the whistling in the deep shafts. I'll respect the old foreman's office. I'll follow the rules. For now. Daryl Thomas.